Hello, everyone. We just finished up a live show where we go over a bunch of things about box joints and how to make really cool box joints, as well as inlays. So, Audrey, what did you think?
I thought it was great. Oh, hey, I'm over here. I'm joining the sessions remotely this time.
Audrey's down in Santa Barbara, and she'll be joining remotely to show us some cool tricks, tips, and tricks in studio, as well as how to use Origin to export things up so we can make some pretty cool box joints that are a little trickier looking. So, if you haven't watched this live, Audrey, tell us where they can find this live.
Yeah, you can find us live every other Thursday at 4 p.m. at sessions.shapertools.com. And you really want to join us live because we'll go over questions at the end of the show that don't get included in the YouTube video. And we also do giveaways.
Yeah, so if you're watching this on YouTube, enjoy the show. Come see us live next time. Hello, everyone, and welcome back. It's Thursday. You know what that means. It means Shaper Sessions is on. If you're not here with us live, every other Thursday, we do a live show in the Shaper studio in San Francisco where we go over tips and tricks and projects and teach you how to use the tool and how to get the best results out of it. So today I'm alone, but not really,
No,
because
not
did you
really.
hear that? Audrey is remote. So Audrey, how you doing?
Hey, how's everybody over there? Yeah, I'm joining in remotely from my office in my house in Santa Barbara, and I thought I would just tag along so you can get some help with
Well,
your
and last week was
projects in
so
studio.
fun, we had to have you back. So I said, Audrey can't make it back here. She works remote, but we can do this remote. We did this before, long time ago. And so today we're going to go over a bunch of stuff. We're going to go over box joints on BenchPilot. We're going to go over inlays on BenchPilot. And if that isn't enough, I think by the end of the show, you'll feel like it is. There's a lot to go over. And we're really going to try to do our best to start kind of in the early beginning stages and then progress through the states of progress in these projects. So, Audrey, before we get going though, how is the weather in Santa Barbara?
Pretty good. Super. It's just like sunny right now. Sorry, I'm looking out my window. And it's been gray for a couple of days, and down here in Southern California, we complain about that kind of stuff.
Well, it seems a
uh,
lot better than up here because as of yesterday, it started raining in San Francisco, and all the material that I milled was down in my workshop, and I was a little worried about some wood movement because we haven't had rain in quite a while. So
yeah, and then
hopefully
everything just gets
everything's
humid.
flat enough for these things. But let's jump into it. We have a lot to go over, and let's get it going. So, okay, so if you're new to Origin and new to BenchPilot, we're going to start with something that Origin does really well, which is joinery. This is one of the key things we love doing because that precision fit that you can get out of these joints is so nice. And so box joints in general kind of have gotten a bad rap over the years. They're typically used for kind of lower cost drawer boxes and those types of things. And while they're very strong and very useful, the visual aspects can kind of sometimes turn people off. So we're going to talk through the basics, and we'll start with like a pretty uniform box joint. Throughout the show, we're going to show some different types of things you can do. But I thought we'd jump over to the tool real quick because right on Origin, a few years ago, we developed this extension called Box Joint Basic. And I'm just going to open this up and show you. Essentially, we can create box joints right on the tool without having to think too much or figure out all the math. And this is something that has just been really awesome because typically with box joints, you're kind of stuck to the table saw that you have or the router bit size, and you kind of do these evenly spaced pins. Well, not with the digital world of Origin. We can kind of change that to our liking. So let's just jump in and quickly build one. I'm going to take a couple pieces of material that I've milled up here, just some pretty small walnut pieces, and I'm going to go ahead and clamp one into the workstation.
Were those some of the ones that were in your workshop?
These are,
Getting
and
all.
and they're still pretty flat. Luckily, I was sighting them earlier, and I'm like, yep, they're pretty good. So I think we have just enough circulation down there. The garage is just got some open windows to the outside world, so it's kind of at the mercy of the weather. But seems like we're good. Okay, so I'm
Yeah.
going to go ahead and throw this in here. Now, before I do this, I'm going to grab the shaper calipers, and I'm just going to quickly turn these on and make sure we're connected, because I want to transfer the measurement of this right over to origin. So let's do that and make sure we're connected. Yep, there we go. Cool. So I'm going to go ahead and put the workstation in and put my material up. I've set the workstation up so there's a little bit of a gap behind the material, because with box joints, you're going to need to pass through the top all the way over the material. So you kind of have to make sure you don't put that shelf at the top level, because if you do, you'll cut into your aluminum. So always remember that. Just lower that front clamping face a little bit. Okay, so we'll go ahead and put that in. And now on origin, I'm just going to switch the spindle out, and we're going to make a grid very quickly. And that's going to basically align our material to the digital world. Make sure I don't hit this camera on the way out.
Yeah, do you always make a grid, Sean? When
Yes.
you're using origin? Pretty much every time?
You know, not every time. It depends kind of what you're doing. You know, if you're doing a visual inlay based on the way a material is aligned to the wood grain, or you know, you don't really care so much about precision, you can just kind of ignore the grid and pop it down. I like to tell people, if you care about accuracy more than about a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch, I would use a grid. But if you're like, you know what, I have a big sheet of plywood, I'm trying to cut the shape out, you can kind of visually align it, and you should be fine most of the time. But if you're like, hey, I want this to be perfectly aligned to a piece of joinery so that when it goes together, it's not askew, then you definitely want to set up a grid. So, okay, so I'm just gonna, I made a new scan earlier, so I'm not gonna redo that. And I'm just going to add the scan. So I'll remove origin out of BenchPilot. And this is something that I love. It's like we just made this really nice little ability to clip and unclip origin from BenchPilot really quickly. So if you're doing a lot of work manually, you can pull it out, but you can just put it right back in, and now we're back into pilot mode. And that automatically senses based on whether it's kind of in or out. So
Yeah. Yeah, I remember when we were testing the stuff out, like you just like keep putting it in and out and in and out, just so like satisfying the click.
it really
Uh,
is, you know,
yeah.
and that, you know, that's something when you're designing these tools, you really want those moments to feel good. And I think the BenchPilot really delivered on that. Okay, so I have a grid. I set it up on the bottom right or bottom left-hand corner of that piece of material. Now I'm just going to go into create box joint. And what you're going to see is I basically need to put my grid at the center point there, and it's going to go ahead and build this file for me. And so I have the other piece beside me, so I'm just going to measure straight from there. And first we measure our thickness. So I'll just measure that and click, and it's going to automatically send that value over. Don't even need to worry about touching the screen. Then I'm going to select my width and click that. Boop. Cool. So now that is basically sent over, and if you zoom in, you're going to see that it created essentially these this file just instantly without me having to think very much. And that's kind of where we like to live. You know, it's like the less math we have to do, the more woodworking we could do. And so the only thing we can decide now is really based on how many pins we want to see. So if I want to see, you know, 4 pins, it's going to regenerate that instantly. If I want to see, you know, 12 pins, it's going to say, hey, that's not possible with the current settings you're using. So it'll default to the
Nice.
biggest version it can. So that would be 11 for this one. But let's just do a little more simple. We don't need to get crazy. Let's start with 5. Okay. So I put 5 in there. I'm going to place that joint. We'll go over glue gap in a little bit, but by default, it's normally pretty good. It just means how close are the pins together when you end up cutting them, and by default, it's normally quite good. Okay, now one thing you're going to notice is, you know, if you're new to Origin, there's an icon that pops up in the middle that says a number, and that is the depth of cut for this shape that we have selected here. And this is new as of the last operating system, Monterey. It allows you to quickly visualize how deep it's going to be cut. And we know how deep it's going to be cut because when we measure the thickness of that material, we basically use that number plus a small bit. So that way when you cut it, you get a very tiny bit of overlap, but not much. One of the worst things you can do with box joints is if you don't cut them deep enough, when you put them together, they don't go through it. And so a lot of people will actually overcut and then kind of cut them back after the fact. But with Origin's precision, a lot of times we can just kind of get them perfect. So That's it. I have it
Yeah,
set
because you
up.
can repeat it. You can just cut it once, and then if it's not quite right, you'll go over it again, new
Cor-
depth.
Correct, and you just can change that depth, recut, and obviously you can never put wood back, but you can keep going deeper. So I always go on the low side if I am guessing. So now we just switch back to our bit. Now let's pull that out. The camera's very close to this. All right, there's that, and now we could use different size bits. We can use large bits, small bits. Obviously, they're going to be impacted based on how big they are. And when we were setting that up, it tells us exactly. I put in the size bit that I was going to use, which is a 1/4 inch bit, and it's ready to calculate based on that. So if I would have put a smaller size bit, we could have done more pins, and we'll go over that shortly. Now,
Right, but you just don't want to use a larger bit at this point because
correct.
you might run out of space.
Correct. And so the only thing I need to do now, this is change this to a pocketing cut, and BenchPilot's automatically going to kind of clear all that area for us. So I'm just going to come here, change my bit diameter to a 1/4 inch bit, do a quick Z touch, and then we'll be off and cutting. Now on BenchPilot, we automatically will create the shape needed to cut this out for you. And so really just at this point, it's let it run.
Yeah, and just to clarify, Sean, this isn't just for BenchPilot, right? You can use Box Joint Basic if you also just have Origin.
Yeah, so if you're not a BenchPilot owner, you can still run this with just Origin. And this is kind of how we did this before BenchPilot. I mean, I've cut mini box joints by hand, and it's a pretty fast process. You know, you're not really taking off too much material, and you just kind of go back and forth a couple times, and next thing you know, you have this perfect fitting joint. And what's really cool about this is for people who are just getting started in woodworking, joinery becomes one of those things that you start slow and then you work your way up, and next thing you know, you're trying to hand cut dovetails. And so Origin's kind of bridging that gap between, a very simple miter joint. When you add these kind of physical connectors, dovetails and box joints, you're actually giving the joint a lot more surface area for the glue to connect to, and that makes the joint stronger in the end. So I really like the box joint as far as a structural joint. It's just, how do we make it look better? Because what you're going to see here, and that piece is already done. What you're going to see here is we now have our first cut. Looks pretty good. It's just a very simple. I'll bring it over here. We got a new camera this week, so we can kind of see some details here. So this is just
nice.
a pretty standard cut. Couple cuts back and forth, and now we need to cut the other side because you'll notice the pins are different based on what we cut. So luckily for us, the Origin software already understands that and does it for us automatically. So I'm just going to come back over here for anyone who hasn't seen it. I'm putting the support bar up so I can index off of the top of the material. And I'm going to clip this in. Now, when we're doing joinery on Origin, we do want to use this support bar. That's going to really help us make sure we get a nice 90-degree cut right on. If you don't use it sometimes, especially if you're holding it by hand, it will tip a little bit, and then your joint won't seat properly. So I always like to tell people, don't forget to use that bar.
You just want to be careful it's not too close, though, because you don't want to run into that
well,
bar.
I was looking at this bar, and I'm pretty sure Sean maybe took a couple chunks out of it over the years because... But it's aluminum. It's okay. It's it's not going to be that big of a deal. If you cut into it, take a rasp, sand it back so you don't cut yourself. It'll be okay. All right.
Yeah,
so
it's probably fine, and it means you're using your
exactly.
Origin,
I would much rather have a support bar with a couple nicks in it than one was pristine. So
right.
Okay, so we're going to go back to this the screen of Origin, and if I go to design mode, what we're going to see is if I hover this shape and if I hover this box joint, now I'm going to see a new option called swap down here. And this is how we change the joint from the inside to the outside. And you'll see when I do that, now the tool paths that are showing up, if I go to preview mode, are actually in this other area. And so I'm going to erase the cut history because I don't want to look at the old one anymore. And we're ready to roll. Now, what you'll notice is we could probably do this one without changing it to pocket. And it would just cut a single path over and over. And I'm just going to check my settings for BenchPilot. They look good. Let's just send it just like this.
Yeah, so the advantage of BenchPilot, and I guess Origin also, is this sort of vertical work holding for things like box joints, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of CNC machines aren't going to come with that built
No.
into it and designed for that.
And this is a huge part of where I think Origin kind of differentiates itself, is that, you know, it can cut on end. We have accessories like workstation and the clamps that are really designed for batch cutting of these things over and over. You can see here, we're just cutting one at a time, but with BenchPilot, you can definitely make more interesting jigs to batch process multiple pieces over and over, and even have, like, I could have both pieces on the workstation cutting both times, flip them, cut the other end, and now I have two sides that are completely done every time I cycle it. So yeah, it's a really big improvement for like standard CNC. Okay, so there we go. We have our cut. Now this is where a lot of people are going to make a little mistake here. They're going to go ahead and pull it out, and they're going to walk over here to the piece we already cut, and then they're going to try to fit it, and then they're going to say, oh, it's not quite right. Well, if you just leave it in here, we can fit it right here without having to take it out. And actually, that feels really nice. So
Your head's in your way.
Oh, my head's in the way. Yeah, there's too many cameras. Okay, so if I come here, I can just fit it from here. I can even take the support bar off to fit it from the right 90-degree angle. And I can really dial that in. So if this was too tight, I would come back to Origin, change the offsets so that this part grows a little bit more. And then when I go back, it's going to fit really nice. But this is actually a perfect fit. I mean, I really like that. One of the things that you'll find if you start using Origin a lot is you want really tight joints because you can get them. But when it comes to gluing them up and setting them up, sometimes they'll just be like, you won't be able to get it in with glue. And so there's some restraint when you're using Origin to know you need to leave a little room. So that's the basic box joint experience. Right on tool. Now, let's talk about these. And I'm going to come over here for a second so you can see. So these are the two we just cut. If we look down here at this other camera. So these are the two we just cut. And you can see they create a nice joint. Looks nice, feels nice, etc. But, you know, a little boring. You know, these are really nice if I was making drawer boxes and I just wanted that nice stability to hold them. But there's a lot more to that. So let's talk quickly about some of the things you can do with the on-tool box joint. So this one here is when you use, when we talk about pins on box joint, we're counting the number of intersections here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. This would be a 4-pin piece. And if you look at any evenly spaced thing, you'll see that they match if they're even. And that means you're going to get a top that's open here and a bottom that's open here. And so depending on what you're doing, you may want that, or you may want kind of more of what we created here, which is I want kind of tops to have the connectors on the outside, but the middle would only be connected on the other side. And so this is a unevenly numbered pieces of pin. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pins. And so you can kind of design that when you're entering the number of pins, so you get a feel for, you know, hey, depending on how you're putting pieces together, you might want one or the other. Now,
yeah, like if you want it to be super symmetric, or
correct,
or if you want it to look a little bit,
you know, depending on the wood, depending on the box feeling you're going for, like a lot of those would come into consideration. Even like how you're attaching the lid. Sometimes you maybe want the front to be showing or not. So yeah, that's definitely something as you're building a box you would want to be thinking about. Now the other thing is I talked about being able to do a bunch of different pins. Now here is kind of a box joint where we have a ton of different pins. So you can see I did the max number, and this is more standard of what you would find like if you were using a box joint jig on the table saw, because you're basically removing the same depth or same distance for every cut. And the beauty of being able to change the pins is you can make those bigger or smaller. But you can also get the very standard, very tiny cuts, and that's pretty cool. I will say though, this one is much more painful to glue up because you need to glue every surface on the inside. So your glue process ends up being a lot harder. But in some projects, I found that these really tiny ones do look quite nice, especially if you're working on little smaller stuff. They're just a little nicer to work with.
Yeah, and probably a little bit more punishing if you're driving Origin around, or if you'd have to do those by hand for sure.
If you have,
Imagine doing those by hand.
I will say I would not I would not tell people to do the small ones by hand. That's where BenchPilot really shines because if you're doing by hand, it's going to take you a lot longer and really you're adding some strength, but really it's just more visual, I think, in the most part. And those just having the faces come together really creates a lot of the strength. Now, I talked a little bit earlier about finding the depth for the cutting because that's going to show how far they protrude in or out. And I was playing around with it yesterday and I wanted to show off this example. And this is an example where I intentionally went over to pillow the faces a little bit. And what's really cool is it just has this nice effect. When you have a little piece coming over, I just chamfered all the edges of the piece. And it's actually pretty nice. I was kind of surprised when I looked at it. I was like, maybe I'll use that in a future project. It's a pretty fun one. So lots of things you can do with the box joint on tool. But, at the end of the day, those are pretty uniform. So what I want to do is I want to show you a couple small details about box making that are related to the box joint stuff, but I really want to jump into this next level where we make a non-uniform box joint using Origin and Studio. So let's jump into this real quick. Cool thing that I learned not too long ago, and this is going to take just a minute, is when you're preparing your stock for these boxes, a lot of times you're just cutting pieces and then you'll kind of glue them together and you kind of get grain that doesn't connect on the edges. Well, if you look up online, and I'm not going to go into the full detail here, but there's a way to do continuous grain wrap when you're making wood. And so I took this piece here, which is some sycamore that I have at home, and the first step to make a continuous grain box is to split it down the middle. So I took it over to the bandsaw, and I basically cut it down the middle like this.
And yeah, that's resawing.
This is essentially just resawing it right down the middle. And what's great about that is now, if I bring it over here to this is essentially getting me, if we go to the top cam, because this is essentially getting me a book match so that I can have the same pieces on the left and right, essentially. And now what's great about that is if I cut them to the same width and I open them like this, now all the corners are going to match up. The corners will all match up. Like the grain is continuous all the way around the box. And this is really most visible when you're doing something like a mitered box. But what I will say is just doing this continuous grain wrap around a box joint makes the whole box feel a lot cleaner, even though you won't exactly see where they come together because there's some width to it. It just makes the box feel a lot nicer. So if you haven't checked that technique out, that's one to really raise the value of your box making. And it's something I really think is quite cool thing to learn. It takes a little more effort, but it's not really something you can point out, but it really does make an impact. So that's something you should check out if you haven't. And then the second thing with making these boxes is we have to make tops and bottoms, right? And so when we're doing that, we essentially either need to make something that has a groove in it, like so, where we're cutting through and then the bottom or in the top of the box is fitting into it. And that's something that we can do either on Origin, and I'll quickly show you how to do that, which is a nice little technique, or you can kind of just do it on the table saw. And I've done this one here where I have these box joints that come together, and then the groove is in the bottom all the way around. And now, there is one downside to doing it on the table saw, which is kind of why I like doing it on Origin. When you do this, when you cut it, if we come over here, Goose, you're going to see there's always going to be one little spot where the table saw has to run through the edge that you need to patch later. And so every time you cut it, if I did a top and the bottom, there would be 2 holes here on both corners, and I would need to patch them with a little piece. Not a big deal.
Show the other side
you can
of
do
that,
it,
Sean.
but if you really
Just turn it
want
around.
a perfect one, you'll see here, we're actually doing this groove that stopped right before the edge. And so if I was going to do this on Origin, and we're just going to zoom through this one really quickly so that we don't have to take up too much time. If I had this on Origin, I would put this on the shelf right on the top here, and I would make a grid off the bottom corner of this piece. And what I like to do is I like to get a little stop block and put it right next to it, so that when I peel this up, I can put the next one down, and it registers the same spot. And so we can register it over and over, cut each one. And I'm going to just essentially either going to put a small rectangle or a line from corner to corner, and I'm going to offset it from the edge just a little bit so that when it comes together, like so, you don't have to patch that hole this time. And so this is kind of a nice little technique to do on Origin, and it doesn't take long to do. Just a couple grid points, small rectangle. You can raise it and lower it depending on how high you want the bottom to be. And that's a really nice technique that I've picked up with Origin, just because it saves you that plug, and it makes the box feel a little more whole. So that's that. And then last box technique that I want to go over. So this is actually, I stole this box from Russ. I think he made this in a show. It's a pretty nice box, actually. The same thing as this, where you put a groove in the bottom, but you also put a groove in the top. And so what he did here is, and you won't be able to see it because it's already glued up, but essentially he made that groove on the top and the bottom, put it together, and cut all the box joints at once, and you get a huge box that's assembled. And you don't build it in two different parts. You build it as one. Then we're going to take this over to the table saw, run that down the middle, flip it, run that. I guess there's something in this box. Run that, and run the final one. And then the lid will come off, and you kind of get to save some of the steps of making two different versions of box joints, two different tops. It can speed up process a little bit. And, we could even talk about how, if we know our blade thickness, we could put that in the design file so that when we rip it out, we don't lose any width in the box joints. So those are 3 little box joint tips that I thought we'd go over before we jump into what I'm very excited about, showing non-uniform box joints. So, Audrey, you ready for this?
I think so.
Oh, did I lose you? Yes, I lost you.
No.
Oh.
Maybe you can't hear me anymore. Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yes. The joys of remote workshopping. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and load some material in. Let's just walk people through what we're going to do first, and then we'll head over and do it. So I got some pieces for a box that I'm going to make, and we kind of want to make that non-uniform look. I like to think of this as almost like a faux dovetail, because you can really, when you start looking at these and they're not uniform, they do start bridging the gap of like, is this a dovetail?
Yeah, well,
or
it makes
what
it
is this?
look less like it's made from a machine and more like it's, made by a human, because a lot of care was taken into the look
Totally.
of this thing and the size of all the elements. So I do agree with you. Yeah, that
Yeah.
non-uniform box joint really has a really sort of luxury feel to it.
Yeah, so we'll take this over. We're gonna grid, probe. We're gonna export it to Studio. Audrey's gonna show us some Studio stuff if you weren't here for last week. Then we'll bring it back and we'll cut it. So with that, let me go ahead and get set up real quick, Audrey, and I'm just gonna mark which side I'm registering on so I don't forget.
Great. Yeah, and just to fill people in, even though I'm in Santa Barbara and Sean is in San Francisco right now, we're actually logged into the same Shaper account. So I can do stuff in Studio over here, and Sean is going to get all of those files on his Origin over in the Session Studio, which is pretty fun. And also what it means is, I think at some point here, he's going to probe the stock and then export that from Origin. And I'll be able to open that export from Origin in Studio, and I can reference basically exactly the real material that he has in front of him, even though I'm not even there.
Oh yeah, it's kind of incredible. And also, Audrey, if you're not busy this weekend, I have a few other projects that I might send over to your ShaperHub.
I don't know.
All right, so let's start. I'm gonna do a new scan. One of the cool things about BenchPilot is if you do a new scan, you don't need to unclip to do the scan. We've actually We've reduced what the camera sees when it's clipped in, so the bar doesn't get kind of merged into the image. But as you can see, we got a pretty good image here of my stock. And let's go ahead and swap that bit out again to my probing setup.
Yeah, and the image is really mostly just to help you out, right? Because you can
Correct.
still, as long as Origin sees a tape field or tape points, it doesn't really matter if you've scanned the material, but it is pretty helpful for you as a sanity check of, oh yeah, I am where I think I am. Very just
Correct.
comforting, at least
It,
for me when I do that kind of
I
stuff.
agree. I think seeing the image on Origin really helps me feel good about not cutting the wrong thing or forgetting something and I placed a shape in the wrong spot. You know, all those little things really do start adding up as you're figuring out what bit to use and what your speeds and what your material is and did you get everything tightened down. So it's just one more thing to think about. So anything that reduces that, I'm all for. So let's quickly make a grid. Now, I'm going to show you. So we have a new feature as of the not the M release, but the release before that, where you can probe shapes, circles and rectangles, and it will find all the exterior shape, and it will find kind of the center point and make a grid. But I really want to reference a corner. So in order to do that, I'm going to start by making a grid, and I'm just going to lower this bit down. And I'm going to make sure my bit size is correct. Yes, it is. And I'm just going to toggle the edge because I want to toggle the back of the material. So I'm going to,
Yeah, and the image here is really helping you out too, because maybe
yeah,
you would know that that's the right edge, but that the image is much more
the
clear
image
than
is
you
really helping
remembering.
here. And, one of the problems, there's a bunch of cameras around here, so I can't actually see much. Okay, so there's our grid. We now have that. And then now I am also going to go back and I'm going to probe that rectangle just so Audrey, I could measure it and send it to her, but I have a tool that measures really well. So let's just use that. So I'm going to come back here, going to make sure I toggle the right side.
Yeah, also because I said that you were going to do it, now you have to do it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, see, this is the beauty of a rehearsal. Okay, so there's that. And then I'm just going around this shape with the probing rectangle tool and selecting basically a little bit of every face. And then it's going to create that shape. And I'm going to go ahead and export it. So the export feature is new as of a couple releases ago. Essentially, it exports everything up to our file system in My Files. And once I export that, we're just going to jump over to Audrey's screen. And
Yeah, let's take a look.
she's going to show us.
I've had this file up for a little while, but Sean just made a different file. So I'm going to go into my main menu and I'm going to say open recent. And there it is, Origin Export 1. So I'm going to click on that. I can even double click and it'll open this design that Sean just exported from his Origin. And I can see there's the little custom anchor there because Sean made a grid. And then here's the rectangle that he probed from this piece of stock. So apparently your material is 0.356 inches tall and about 4 and almost 3/4 inches wide. So we're going to make some uneven box joints for this one.
Yeah, I think that would be great. And one of the things that I was looking at as I was thinking about this one is I was thinking maybe we'd modify what we've done here yesterday and change it just a little bit. So instead of having kind of these, if we look on this camera here, we have a couple pins on the outside and one in the middle. I think what I'd like to do is I still like the one in the middle, but I think maybe having 3 pins with a bunch of space in between the insides. So like a pin on the outside, a pin on the outside, a pin in the middle, and then a long inside. I think that would look pretty cool. So maybe we can try setting something up like that.
Yeah, so you wanted one long pin sort of in the middle somewhere.
Yeah.
And you said, and then a pin on either side or 2 pins on either
Yeah.
side?
So like I think 2 pins on the side of that, and then essentially we'll have like 3 of those boxes that are the same
Yeah.
width, and that would give like a nice like space between all the little pins.
Okay, so or can you see my screen? I can't tell,
I can
Sean, if you can
barely
see my
see.
screen.
so
Okay.
so oh yeah, here, let me go off screen for a second. Then I can see a little better.
This
Oh
is
yeah,
like one of
okay.
those games of
Yeah,
telephone
exactly.
where
This
like
is
I'm just designing based off of what
er,
you're saying, and
well, and apparently I'm not
uh,
saying it very well, you know. Okay, so yes, I think what I'm thinking is that big, large shape that you have in the middle. I would like
yeah.
two of those.
Oh, two of
Two
those.
of those,
Okay.
yeah. And then there's a
I hit
pin in
Command D to
between
duplicate
those.
it, and you want a pin between them,
Yeah, like a
like
pin between them
here.
right in the middle, and
Yeah.
then two large spaces, and then two pins on the outside.
Cool. And so these are pins on opposite wood, so they're going to be touching basically.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, like that.
Just
Okay,
like
cool.
that, yeah.
And this is in the middle, and then you wanted two pins on either side.
Yeah, but those
And is
should be
that
on the far edge.
yeah, yeah. And so these
Those can grow,
maybe
yeah, to fill.
those can grow. Okay. I
Yeah.
made these pins just a little over a quarter inch because I thought, I don't know, maybe
Well,
I'll let you
you thought correctly
choose what
because
you
I
want.
would love to use the
Okay.
1/4 inch bit. And so the reason here is
And
we're going
we'll
to have
stick
to
this.
cut all those out. So the minimum size of the pin needs to fit within the bit size we're going to cut it
Right.
with. So that's a
And then I
good
want
call.
to just stretch this one over, and actually I'll use a different anchor. So I'm right now, if I stretch this shape, it's going to stretch from the center out because it's trying to keep the center in the same place. That's what this little blue square is doing. That's a kind of an anchor for the shape. And so if I click on that anchor selection button in the parameter panel, I get all these options and I can choose an edge anchor. And then now I can stretch it on the side and scale it to fill that space. And I can do the same thing over here. I could have also maybe copied this side and mirrored it, but it's just as fast. All right, so now we've sort of got our pattern
Mm-hmm.
for everything.
What do you think about it? Do you like it?
I like it. I think I like that there's not too many pins. It's not going to take you too long to cut
Yeah,
this out.
there is a whole thing. No one wants to watch it cut too long, but this should be pretty good. Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll go ahead and cut the. Let's go ahead and cut the pins first.
So
Yeah.
these little guys, you want to pocket those out first,
Yes,
so that
please.
sorry. Do
Yeah.
you want those to be left over, or do you
Oh, this
do
is
you
a
want
good
to
question.
take
Uh,
those out?
let's take them out.
Let's take them out. All right. So if we're going to take them out, then we're going to set all three of these to a pocket over in plan mode. And I can do that right now, but also I'm over here realizing like this is a little bit busy, and maybe Sean doesn't want to deal with all of these paths that are in here. So if I go back to design mode, I can take these other paths that we're using as sort of a design template right now, and I can set them to reference paths. So over here in the parameter panel on the right, there's this button here that says set as reference and lock.
And
And if I click
what
on
does that
that,
mean, Audrey?
uh, well, I'm about to tell you.
Oh, good.
So it means I want to sort of lock these away in my design for now, and have them in the background. So it takes your paths, it makes them yellow, so you know they're different. They're not design paths. Also, it gets rid of the fill color so that it's easier to see all of your other paths that you're actually designing with. And the other important factor is it keeps them out of plan mode and it keeps them out of origin. So they're really just there as a design reference, which is why we call them reference paths. But if you want, you can also use this in your design flow. Like, oh, for a little while, maybe I want to have these in the background. I want to be snapping to them and referencing them, but not designing with them. And then later what we'll do is you can also select them and say make editable again, and then that way you can do stuff with them again and have them in plan mode. So that's a nice little way to have things in your design that are really only there to help you lay things out or measure or uh, snap things together, but not get all messy in your origin file.
Oh, it's awesome.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Now, if we go back to plan mode, I can see all those pockets. I might actually, you know what? I'm going to take this stock rectangle and I'm going to make it a guide in plan mode, because that way it will come over to origin, and you'll be able to see that sort of this is your stock, and you can sort of make sure that it's all lining up.
Oh, nice.
And the other thing we can see here is maybe I've made these rectangles just a little bit tall. I don't think that, for example, if I take this and I set it to inside and we say you're going to use a 1/4 inch bit, um, they're going to come all the way down here past your stock. That's probably a little bit taller than we need. So if we go back to design mode, I can select all of these again and use that edge handle just to bring it in and make it a little bit less tall.
Less of a chance for
That
me to
way.
cut into the support bar.
Yeah. And we're still clearing the edge, so you're still going to overshoot, which is good because the overshooting, right, it makes for a cleaner cut.
Yep.
And I'll just make sure these all get set to pocket, and that's all I have to do. I'm pretty sure I can give this a new name if you want.
Yeah, it's
Do
fine.
little pin pockets.
I was just going to measure the depth real quick. So we're at 0.37 thickness. So I'll just modify that right on the tool when you send it over. So thank you, Audrey. That's awesome. I also really learned a couple new things about reference path. I'm going to go ahead and import that file. And
Yeah, so I didn't actually have to send it to you, right?
yeah,
Because
this is kind
it's
of. I was actually thinking like, how does it get here? Oh, it's already there. This
because
is
we're
a
signed into the same account.
same account. You don't have to send me a link or anything. It's just right there. So one thing, if you're not a Studio user, when you make changes in Studio, those files get automatically saved. And if you go to Origin at any point, it will take the last version of that file, which is really nice if you're just changing one little thing. You don't have to get out your USB stick, plug it in, download it from the internet, copy it over, come out here and plug it in. Everything's just up to date here. Okay, so now we've imported that file. If we come to Screen Goose, all I need to do now, so here's the file. I just need to put that right back to 0, 0. So I'm going to move that little anchor point all the way to 0, 0. You'll notice here, if you look in the corner, there's a red triangle on the bottom of this anchor point, and that means it is using a custom anchor, which is very important when we're importing and exporting. And I'm just going to save that, and boom, it looks like it matches up perfectly. So I've already touched off, so we got nothing left to do except cut. So I'm just going to make sure that my depth's correct. So I'm going to set my depth to 0.37 start. That's going to do 2 passes is what it's telling me. And let's roll.
Nice. Oh, I
Ah,
think I messed you up by sending those to pockets because they're so
yeah.
close
I
to
think
a 1/4 inch. You
I
gotta
I
do it
think
in
that's what's
inside
happening.
cut.
It's saying, hey, the pocket, we don't need a pocket. So I'm going to go ahead and just change this to a inside cut right on the tool. And
Yeah, it
there
turns
we
out
go.
your little remote design buddy is maybe not
Well,
as helpful as you thought.
well, this is the beauty of Origin. We can change stuff right on the fly. And I think what's happening is I have a roughing pass set because I want to make sure that it's taking rough passes and then a finish pass. But because our shape's so tight, it won't actually fit in there. So let's just turn roughing pass off, and then boom, we got it. So we'll cut these without a roughing pass, and I'll just slow the speed down of BenchPilot a little bit so we don't have any issues. Should be fine. Turn that on.
Yeah, so while we're doing this, I kind of wanted to show something over here on the subject of sharing things. So we just said, oh, we're logged into the same account. All I have to do is let Studio do its thing, and it saves all of your Studio designs automatically in my files. So you really don't have to send anything if you're logged into the same account on Origin. But let's say I did want to send this to a friend who had a different account. I just wanted to point out that it's really easy to do that. All you have to do is in the main menu, you can say share a design, and then it'll pop up a new tab, and it'll give you this page on ShaperHub where you can add some description or instructions to say, hey, Bob, he's are the pins you're looking for example, and then hit save. You can choose whether you want this to be an unlisted or a listed page. So it's unlisted means that it won't show up on ShaperHub with all the other projects, and listed means that it will. So if it's just a friend, you can just keep it unlisted, for example, hit save, and then when that's done, there's a link right there that you can send to someone, and they can sync it to their designs, sync it to their files, and then they can open it in their origin super fast.
Okay, Audrey, speaking of super fast,
Yeah.
these are done.
Nice.
And they look awesome, I might say. We can bring it over here real quick just so we can get a quick look. Because, oh, it's already looking like dovetails already. So let's quickly, can you get me that other file ready? And then I will set this up so we can cut that and
Great.
show how that works.
Yeah, so I'll just grab these smaller pockets that you just cut, or inside cuts, and I'll set those to reference because we don't need them anymore. I'll grab these other two, and I'll make them editable, and I can also make them a little bit shorter like we were talking about earlier. And then over in plan mode, we can, these ones, they're so big, we probably do want them to be pockets on
Agreed.
origin.
Yep.
And that's it. That's really all I had to do, was just switch out which of these shapes are getting sent over to origin.
Okay, nice. All right, so if we come back over to origin here, what we're going to see is right now I just have what I just cut, but all I want to do is delete those files. So I'm going to delete those files because I don't care about them anymore. And I'm going to import, again, the same shape, little pin pockets. Love
Now
the
they're yeah, I
love
could have
the
renamed
name.
it, I guess.
Love the name. I'm going to put it back to 0, 0, hit save, and you'll see our pockets show up. And I can even use the cut history from the previous cuts to make sure, yep, everything looks good. So back to another game of cutting. I'm going to turn that on.
Nice. And BenchPilot is just cutting out those pockets for you, huh?
Oh, I couldn't hear you. Try again, Audrey.
Yeah. I was just noting that it looks like BenchPilot is doing a great job with those pockets and cutting them out automatically.
Yeah, so that's something part of the Monterey release when we released BenchPilot was to make sure that BenchPilot could cut pockets. And so, you know, how do we do that? Essentially, we're making a bunch of shapes that fill that pocket, and then we traverse through them. So here's what's interesting. You'll see it cut that pocket, and now it's going over here to start this one. And it's always going to kind of start in the middle. I've had pretty good success without getting a bunch of tear out, so I'm not too worried about that. But if we were worried about tear out, we could have cut, you know, a different path first to try to reduce that. But from what I've seen in a lot of these, it's working really well. But it's going to just start in the inside and work its way out. And so we're on the second shape here. And what you're going to notice after this is actually the pocket's going to change to an inside cut. And it's going to actually cut the final shape here. And so this is something BenchPilot's going to cut all its pockets first, and then it'll go back and cut inside cuts after. So just a little detail when you're cutting a bunch of pockets with BenchPilot. Oh, okay, well, let's see what we got. We're about to wrap this one up, and I just got word that we're a little over time. So I think we're going to go to mid-show break real quick and have a quick chat about if we should do the inlay stuff real quick or if we should kind of hold that for another show. But before we do that, let's check this out. And notice I'm not...
It's probably a good time to also remind people to ask questions.
Also, good time to ask questions.
Chat,
also,
we will still be doing a Q&A.
We could just ask the chat if they want us to keep going or not. You know, they can let us know. All right, so here we go.
Your head's in the way again, Sean.
Oh man, I gotta have to practice like leaning backwards. Oh man, that is nice. Okay, so let me pull this out. All right, so I'm gonna bring us over to this cam, and so we can see both pieces. And there we go. So now we have our pins and technically our tails. Just imagine there was a little bit of angle in here. And let's see what we got. And this is like a very nice fit. Oh yeah, look at that.
Ooh, that's a good sound.
That is a good sound. And so here is where what's really nice about the box joints. And you can see I overcut them just a little bit. So I would probably, if I was, let's see if I can get a, overcut them just a little bit. So if I was going to do that again, I'd be a little less aggressive on the depth. Now I'm going to need to come back with a flush trim saw and just bust it back after it's glued up. But yeah, that looks pretty sweet.
Yeah, or just like a little hand plane.
I'm a fan. I think that's I think if you showed that to a bunch of people, they would not. It would take them a minute to realize that's actually a box joint. So that's non-uniform box joints. Okay, let's take a break and go to the mid-show break, or we're kind of at the end maybe. We'll see. And let's run through this. So I'm just going to pull this over for a second. All right, Audrey, you want to hit us with the poll question to start?
Yeah, so last sessions, we talked a lot about draw tool, and I'm hoping that the folks who are here in sessions were also there at that time and got a chance to try out draw tool a little bit, because the poll question this time around is, what improvements would you like to see for draw tool next in Studio? So if you've used draw tool, let us know in specifics what are some other improvements you'd like to see. Just a reminder, some of the recent improvements are that we made it possible to join lines together so you can keep drawing on top of something that you left open. We also made it possible to undo while you're in the middle of a drawing. If you didn't mean to put a point there, you can just hit undo and it goes back, which is great. Super useful. I think there is something else and I don't remember what that improvement was.
There, there,
I
there,
can, you know what? I can look at the updates, but
there
there's
there's
a
so
secret in
many
there, so
improvements.
I'll wait
Also,
for that.
Audrey, you should just show that little pop-up so people can explore it for themselves.
That little pop-up over here with the fun, exciting update.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Yeah, we'll get it. So over here in the help menu, and you might have a pop-up for this already if you visited Studio, you'll see we post our updates for new features or new things that we do in Studio in this tab. And we can talk about this more after the mid-show break, but we did just today uh, put out a big improvement to Shapeshifter. Shapeshifter got basically rebuilt entirely. And so a lot of the kind of annoying issues that existed in Shapeshifter before should be resolved, which is super exciting. You can do a lot more. And there's also new functionality where you can shapeshift with spaces inside other spaces. There's just so much more you can do. But I digress. I'm going to go down and talk about the draw updates because that's what the poll question is for. So we did, joining, undo while drawing. Oh, yeah, and then improved line selection and deletion. So what that was over here, if you have a shape that's a draw shape, you made it a draw tool, you can select a line segment and delete it. And then you can use that joining functionality to now add more segments. And that's a nice way to basically add new features to your draw shapes that you had if you drew them missing a corner or something initially.
Totally. And so tons of improvements to Draw Tool. And for everyone here, if you don't use Studio, we send out updates pretty much every week or so. So always getting better. If you're not a Studio user, you should check it out. We have you can try everything. And so please try it out and give us your feedback. Yeah, so I wanted to also mention, if you haven't already submitted some improvements to the Draw Tool in the giveaway, you're doing that to win prizes at the end of the show. Today we have a trace, which is pretty exciting, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, and a couple other things. So please fill that out. If you haven't used the Draw Tool or haven't used Studio, just say you haven't used it yet, and you'll still be entered to win. Okay, so that's first update. Second update is, we talked a little teaser last week, but Adrian Ferrazzuti has a new masterclass out. It's all live. You can go watch it. It's hours of content about veneering and different types of things like that. So Audrey, maybe just quick pull it up so people can know where to go if they want to check it out.
Sorry, I was looking at the wrong one. There we go. We're at the masterclasses tab over here at shapertools.com. And if you scroll down, you can see Adrian's masterclass over here.
Yeah, and if you're not a Origin owner and you just want to check out these things, totally fine. enter your email address, and we will send you access to all of them. And there's more than just this one, but this is the newest one. Can you go back to that last page, Audrey? I also want to just quickly give a plug for Matt Kinney's box making masterclass. So this is one we did a couple years ago, and actually kind of dovetails pretty well into our box joint earlier. He also has a similar love for nice looking box joints, and we go over some details in that, as well as just his kind of approach to how he designs and builds things. So that's a cool one if you are looking for a nice Saturday morning with a coffee and you just want a couple hours to learn a few things. It's a good one. Okay, so that's it for masterclass news. Next up, roadshow. So we have the roadshow that already finished its East Coast tour and is now working its way to the West Coast. And that starts 10/7 in Washington. And it's going to work its way from Washington down to, I believe, San Diego. There's a bunch of different stops. If you're not aware of this and you want to check out things in life, in real life, BenchPilot will be running. You can try Studio, Trace, all the things. There's giveaways. Yeah, please go check it out. Say hi to Ben for us. He's on the road, and you know, even better if you're near San Francisco, we got a we have a road show in the office pretty soon. So check out that. It should be quite a lot of fun. Okay. One more thing. Still no workshop tours. What is going on? I know we got some workshop tours out there. Reminder, we would like, 3-minute video in landscape mode of your workshop. Walk us through. Show us what you got. Inspire the other people watching this. It's always fun to share things. So send that to sessions@shapertools.com, and we will grab those and show them up. But today we don't have any, so we're going to move it right along. And good thing, because we are pretty much out of time. But I did get word the show must go on. So Audrey, we're going to do, we're not going to zoom through it super fast, but we're going to maybe a little faster than we would have. We're going to talk about some inlays, because I really wanted to talk about something related to what we just did, which is, how do you make something like this in the top of a box, on the side of a box? And inlays are a second thing that everyone loves about Origin. So if you're not aware, basically Origin can cut any shape. And if you design or find a design that's nicely built, you can cut the positive and the negative, smack it in real nice and tight, and you'll have a beautiful piece. So today I prepared a little demo, and we're going to walk through this. So I'm just going to put that there and this here. So let's quickly talk about inlays and a few of the ways in which I did this. So first off, you need something like Trace. Trace, if you can draw it, you can make it, and I'm going to kind of walk you through how I did this one. So I started with the idea that I wanted to inlay a leaf of the tree inside the box of the wood. And so I found this ginkgo leaf. I don't know if we're going to be able to see it. Maybe over here, Goose. Yep. So I just kind of drew out a ginkgo leaf with pencil. And I basically wanted to draw it, use Trace to take a picture of it with the Trace app. And if you're not familiar with Trace, Trace basically takes drawings, converts them straight to vectors for CNCs, Shaper Origin, laser cutters, cutting machines for stickers, and any basically digital fabrication machine. So,
right, and we're giving one away today.
Oh, yes. And if you're going to stick around to the end of the show, we will give one away. And so I basically did that. And when I got the Trace app, I'm going to pull this up on the phone so we can see it here. When I took a picture of this, I had drawn it in pencil, and it didn't quite show up properly in Trace as I would like. And so I have a little trick here where I take some tracing paper and I place it over my drawing. And then I get, instead of drawing it with a pencil, I take a pen and I just trace over that shape, trying to get a really clean image. And so then, now, if I come over here, I'll show you quickly what I'm looking at. I just can take my drawing aside, put my trace paper behind a white a white piece of paper here. And then when I go to the Trace app in the phone, I'm going to give my web browser access to the camera and refresh. Looks like we're
It looks
stuck.
like your
Oh, no,
I think your phone
let's
is doing
redo
a
that.
bunch of like app updates in the background. It's that real fun thing that phones do sometimes.
Yes,
Oh, you
exactly.
want to use me now?
There we
This is
go.
when we update everything.
There we go. So it's just a camera with a little button, and when I come over the frame, it's going to say ready to capture, and I can click that button, and boom, we're going to have basically my drawing in scale, right exactly the same. And one of the things Trace does is it automatically flattens the image for you. You don't have to worry about taking the picture really high and perfect. You can just take it wherever. The frame will actually do all the work for you. And so here we go. We have our shape. I can toggle between kind of two different types of design. So the outline will take kind of the inside and outside of the line thickness, which is very small but noticeable to the frame app. And I can also take a center line, which kind of splits the line weights, and in some cases is really helpful for if you're doing single line fonts or even stuff like
Like
this.
signatures, yeah, because it's sort of like it's your pen tip is basically
Correct.
what
It's
it's
kind of like
doing.
picking the middle, and so it's really useful for certain things like this. So I can hit the save button, save that to my Shaper files, and I'm going to save it as Ginkgo 2, because I already saved 1 earlier. And now Audrey's going to show us how to open that in Studio.
Yeah, so I'm gonna make a new design here. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm going to import it so I can click on my files because that's where you saved it, and there it is. So if I import that, uh, I'm gonna just say one object because we can clean this up later. So here we go. We've got our ginkgo leaf. It looks like it it's maybe treating it as like an open line, like an open curve, which is okay. We'll see if our new shapeshifter can help us fix that. So I'm gonna stick. Actually, I'm just curious. Yeah, I'm gonna stick a shape behind this. And what I want to do is, are you gonna inlay this out of two different pieces? Is
Yes,
that
I'm
what you
gonna.
want?
Yeah, I cut that middle down because sometimes working with small inlay parts, the grain direction of the wood really matters, and so I wanted to just be a little more lucky, I guess is the right way to put it. And so I split it in case we need to cut different designs with different grain, because that curve is really it's going to be a problem with the short
Yeah,
grain. So I just kind of
yeah.
split it a little bit.
Yeah, and so our new shapeshifter looks like it recognizes the shape, but I think maybe I'm guessing if I were to zoom in really close over here, it doesn't quite close. So I'm just gonna help it out a little bit, and I'm gonna add something here,
Yeah, and I found
just
the
to
draw
say,
tool really helpful for like when you need to close little things. Now you can just use the draw tool for that. It's awesome.
yeah. So now that's working, and I can keep existing shapes because I'm gonna do this again for the other side. Say make shape. Now you've got one half over here. And then I can do this again with everything in here and shapeshifter. And this time I'm going to grab this side, make shape. There we go. And we've got our two halves. Although I maybe should not have moved them over, but that's okay because
Yeah, I can place them
you're gonna cut
separately
them
too.
separately.
Yeah. Okay, so
So
when you're designing these things for inlays, there's a couple things you need to pay attention to. One of them is the size of the thing you're going to cut, and the other big thing is the bit size. And so whenever you're cutting with a router bit, if you want to if you wanted to cut the inside of a square, it's going to leave a little round based on where that round bit cannot get to. And so when we're designing these things, I was pretty careful about the way hard edges come together in that drawing, so that when I put the pieces together, I don't have a piece that won't fit because the router bit can't cut it. So maybe, Audrey, we could take it back in the studio real quick and just check that if I was going to cut this with, let's say, an 1/8" bit, everything would work out okay.
okay. Sorry, I was just coming back to this a little bit because I wanted them to be in the same place. So you want to check, is an 1/8 bit gonna fit in here? So we're gonna go over to our plan mode and we're gonna choose, and it's already set to 1/8. And then I think you were telling me about this trick earlier, which is that I can set it to inside, and I can also make a duplicate. So I'm going to use Command Shift D to do a duplicate in place, or you could also use this other button in the menu down here. Now I have a duplicate shape, and I can set this one to outside. Uh, and let's just make this a reference path so it goes away. And now you can really see clearly what is and isn't going to get included in this inlay when you cut it out. So this, for example, if I zoom in here, I can see that this little corner would maybe get knocked off when you're cutting sort of the pocket for the inlay, and then the outside cut is lining up with the material that you're going to put in, and so you would end up cutting it a little bit too big, right? So we might want to round that off. But also, it looks like the bit isn't fitting into this part of the stem, but we should also remember that you're going to put two of these together. So when you're making the pocket, the size
Yes.
of the pocket is going to be a little bit bigger there. So I can fix that.
Yeah, and maybe
Let's
if I hadn't have split it into two parts, then the bit would fit very well inside of those. But yeah, exactly.
So this is actually going to be our pocket here, this shape basically. And if we look at this and set it inside with that 1/8 inch bit, yeah, it's totally fine.
Nice.
That's great. Cool.
Okay, cool. So let's cut the plug now, and then we'll let that cut, and then we'll cut the other side as well.
Okay. So do you want me to save this for you? I'm just gonna hide everything.
Yeah, if you just hide everything but the two petals, then we can unhide afterwards.
So you want to cut the petals out first, not
Yes.
the pocket.
Yes, correct. And so when we're doing inlays with Origin, we're almost always going to cut the plug first, because we cut the plug first and we're going to cut that to a 0 offset, and then we're going to cut the pocket. And then when the pocket's finished, we can take the plugs and see if they fit. And if they don't, we can make the offset of the pocket a little bit bigger until we get just the right fit. If you do it the other way, you're doing a little more guessing game.
Cool. So we've got both of the pedal pieces here, and I set everything else to reference paths, so they shouldn't be coming through.
Looks great. They're coming through. I can see them on screen. If we go here, Goose, I've imported both of those shapes. And, one thing when you're doing inlays like this, you do need to think about grain direction. My grain direction runs left and right. So I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees so that most of the stem is in the long grain. If I were to cut that the other way, it would have a more likely chance of breaking. Not that it won't break here. It's always a risk, but you can see here, I'm kind of aligning this and this with the grain. These top pieces are kind of going to be whatever they end up being. Now, when you're doing these inlays, thinking about where this piece is going to land up on the grain is very important if you have like a hard grained wood. But in this case, this is like a yellow poplar, so it's not really going to show too much difference. But if you wanted the fans of the leaf to kind of match with this, and I'll show you one I did earlier, I even broke it up further into multiple chunks so that I could get grain direction straight here, but then facing that way on the pieces. So I've go ahead and done it. I've already set up my bit. I am going to turn back on my roughing passes from earlier so that I get a little cleaner cut on these. And we are going to try to cut just the material and not too much deeper.
Yeah, so this ginkgo leaf that you made, actually, it already had a good bit of roundedness to it. So I think we couldn't quite show off what we meant about the adding radiuses where you need them to get the pieces to fit. So if we take a look at, for example, this lotus that I found in Find Art, I can do the same thing again. And let's just take a look at one petal. Let's pretend like we were only going to inlay this one petal. I'm going to isolate it just to make this super clear. If I make a duplicate now and in plan mode, I set my duplicate to outside and my other one to inside. Looks like this is a really tiny shape, 1/2 inch by 1/2 inch. So I'll make it, I'll select both of them and I'll make them bigger. Now you can see more clearly what we're talking about here, where the inside cut here is sort of representing the pocket you would make in your box, and then the outside cut is representing the leaf that you'd be cutting out that you want to inlay, and they're just not matching up. So what you would want to do in this case where you have an inlay that has these sort of more sharp corners is take a circle in the design mode and set it to be the size of your bit. In this case, it's 1/8, but we'll round up a little bit just to give our bit extra space, and then you can line it up in Studio. You can even zoom in quite a bit and use your arrow keys to nudge it in place a little bit. So I'm hitting left and right here on my arrow keys so that I'm getting it just right. And then if I select that circle and the other shape, and I go into Shapeshifter, then that circle is now
Oh,
rounding
yeah. Look at
that
that.
corner. So
Very
you just
nice.
want to do that for basically both of the corners. But now if we go duplicate this and do the same test in plan mode, it'll work out. How are those ginkgo leaves looking?
Pretty good. Pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to come over here and remove them. Now, you might know we have 2 different pry bars, Sean's pry bar and Jake's pry bar, but actually we want Jake's pry bar this week. So it's a little bit better when you're working on these little details here. And if you look really closely, you're going to see my favorite detail, which I was hoping would work, but you never know when it's live. I essentially cut just the wood, but I did not cut the tape. And so what that means is I can essentially remove the material. So I'm going to remove this piece on the outside first. And all this material is right on top of the bit. If you cut through that tape, you're going to have to deal with the glue kind of getting in your inlay piece. But if you get it just right, and with Origin, you have such precision on the depth that if you nail it, you basically get a perfect little piece, and you don't have to deal with any of the glue on the tape. So there's one piece, and then this is going to be our second piece. I'm just going to wiggle it out. That short grain is very susceptible to breaking. If you break it, it's not the end of the world. You can just put some glue in it. But it is nice to get a perfect piece out. Okay, so there's that, and I'll pop off the rest of this here, just so we can get it. And cool, there's that. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that there. So here's our 2 little pieces. I'm gonna scrape off the rest of this tape, just so when we're about to put the next piece down. One pro tip when you're doing these little inlays like this, if you have a spoil board that's all messed up, just replace it. If you have a bunch of cuts already, the material connecting to all that wood is not going to have a good connection, and so it's going to be more likely to get loose or pop out. So if you have a spoil board, just make a new one. It's just MDF. Also, pro tip is BenchPilot can make the spoil board for you. So you just put another piece on top of here, tell it there's a file on ShaperHub, you can run it, it'll cut the whole thing out, and you have a brand new one. Yep, cool. Last but not least, we just need to cut the final pocket. So Audrey, if you want to get the,
Already done.
Oh, you did.
I
Nice.
switched it all over for you.
Even better. All right, so I'm just going to put double-sided tape down on this piece here. Now, if this box was already made, I could still use the shelf and workstation to just basically rig that up. I could drill right into the top of the box, but it is a lot easier if you're putting these boxes together to just do the inlays before you assemble the box. A lot less stuff to worry about. So I'm just going to put this in here, put my support bar back on, and quickly register that up. And Gonna do a new scan real quick, just so we can visualize where everything goes. Unclip BenchPilot so I can get that bottom part. Pick up origin and image that. All right. Let's go ahead and import that shape. This untitled one right at the top. And I kind of like it at a little skew, so I'm just going to rotate origin till I get it to where I would like it. Somewhere right in the middle looks good. And then change this to a pocket and throw it in BenchPilot. And now, one thing I like to do when I'm cutting inlays is I'm going to reduce the depth of the pocket just a little bit because I'd rather have that inlay be above the material than below it. So I'm just going to change this to
similar to those box joints.
Correct. I just want it to be proud. I'm going to take a card scraper, hand plane, just sand it off later, just so I don't get it too deep and sunk in. Okay, so we'll just go ahead and turn this on.
Cool. And while that's cutting out, I just kind of wanted to toot Studio's horn about this new update. If you're just joining, you maybe missed this, but I did want to talk about Shapeshifter got this big new update. It was basically rebuilt from the ground up. And so what you saw with, getting that radius dialed in here is working even more precisely now, basically in Studio. You can really get those circles close to the corners. And you can also use Shapeshifter to fill voids. So if I have this sort of like L bracket shape, for example, and I wanted to fill this in, I would make it a triangle. I could draw another line in here. And if I grab it and bring it to Shapeshifter, it's now recognizing those spaces in between things, which is really helpful because it means that if you're trying to build up a really big complex shape, you don't have to worry about filling the space behind things so that Shapeshifter fills those things. So very excited about that. I hope people get a chance to try it out.
Really, really awesome work, Audrey. It's so cool watching Studio improve over time, and that's going to be a huge one for people who want to do stuff like this, where they're just having to shapeshift a bunch of things over and over. Okay, let's see how we're doing on this cut. We are rounding the final curve. Now, while that's finishing, I'm basically back beveling the little parts with some sandpaper, just a little bit. So if when I want to get it in, it'll fit a little bit easier. So I'm going to take that off. We have a nice little shape here for it. And let's see. So let's see if the fit is already good at 0 offset, or if we're going to need to take another little pass. Colors look very nice. Okay, so that's a little too tight for my liking. I think it would go, but I don't think it would come back out. So we'll just come back to origin, change the path type from a pocket to an inside cut because we only care about the final edge, and I'm going to make it 0.003. Let's do 0.004. So 0.004 of an inch. Recut that.
Yeah, are we about to do the wheel next, Sean? Is that what everyone is waiting for, I think? I don't think Sean heard me. Probably too loud in there.
Okay. All right, here we go. Lean back out of the camera so everyone can see. Oh, yeah, that's very nice. Okay, so there's one piece in, and then this is the other piece. So I'm going to slide this little leg down first, and then let's see. Oh, yeah. So it needs a little bit of a persuasion here. So if we had more time, I'd probably keep dialing in that offset, but we're going to get... Oh, yeah. Very
Yeah,
nice.
there's other ways to persuade it.
Yes, look at that. Okay, so, and I'll just hit it with a little bit of sand on the top. Bring this over to our brand new detail camera. And boom, there we are. A beautiful little inlay. So that is using Trace, Studio, Origin, and BenchPilot for BenchPilot, or for box joints and inlays. We went a little bit long today, but it's a fun one, I think. Audrey, thank you for joining us remotely, and I'm sure people would love to see you again, so maybe we'll have you join in a few more of these. And everyone, if you're watching this on YouTube, see you on the next one.